What about the Queen in Australia? How important was her visit back in 1954? It was the first by a British monarch to come to Australia. How significant was that moment?
Hugely significant. Of course, she arrived by ship, and her father, King George, was due to come earlier than that, but then of course he died. So the fact that the trip was put off and then she eventually came, she stayed for nearly 2 months, which was an extremely long trip. She left behind Charles and Anne, who were then 5 and 3. She crossed the country on planes, trains, buses, everything on that trip. There was a little bit of a skirmish that while she was in WA, there was an outbreak of poliomyelitis, and the Premier then said, look, you need to stay on the ship and only eat that food during that time. So it wasn't uneventful. But in terms of a monarch, those days, 1954, these were the first, very, very first days of television. The first televised event in Australia was humongous in terms of the public's interest in what was happening, but also the significance in the Commonwealth and the Queen's role as head of the Commonwealth for us.
And not all royals like Australia. Harry and Meghan. Meghan in particular, she spoke about how this tour changed everything. Why?
Well, it changed everything for good and bad. It changed everything, in Harry's words, because the royal family got to see how brilliant Meghan was at the job. But from Meghan's perspective, and we've heard about this, that she was sort of questioned, why are these people coming out? This is just silly. And she just couldn't actually see the role of the monarchy and what it meant. And when it was explained to her that this is the institution, this is how it works, this is how we go and we meet people and we go on walkabouts, but she couldn't quite understand it in a theoretical perspective. But in terms of doing it, remember she baked that the banana bread that she took along to, I can't remember what the event was, but she took along banana bread. She was adored. So it did change, but I think it showcased to her that her acting job, this was not her acting job. This was another role entirely, and she was part of a big institution, and she wasn't the hero of it. She was a cog in the wheel of the institution, and I think that became very clear to her quite quickly. Of course, it was a glorious time for us because we learned that she was pregnant. I met her the night of the National Geographic Awards. She looked incredible. She looked like she was made for the job, but obviously already behind the scenes there were murmurings of discontent.
Why do the royals love Australia so much?
Look, I think King Charles loves Australia because it's something that he doesn't have, that climate, the bush, our friendliness. He loves the multiculturalism. If you ask him about it, it's the fact that Australia is a multicultural country. And he said that one of his favourite things on one of his tours was meeting with ethnic and religious leaders. He's always had an interest, as was evident at the coronation, that he really embraces people of different ethnicities and religions. So I think for that, he sees us as this young, vibrant country. He once said that he felt like he belongs here. He sort of backtracked on that and then said, I have an enormous affection for Australia, but he's been many times. He's obviously brought Camilla. This is their 4th time to come here together. There is a tremendous affection. And for the new Queen as well, she's going to be doing some things that really resonate for her. Domestic violence issues, a literacy program event that she's going to be attending. She doesn't like the heat, though. She hates the heat. So let's hope it's not blisteringly hot days in October, and the dates that they come.
What are the King's priorities now he's coming back to Australia?
Look, his priorities were always the 4 Cs: climate, community, culture and Commonwealth. Now he adds a number 5 to that, and that's cancer. Since he's had cancer, it's become top of his list of things that he's interested in and curious about, and that's reflected in the itinerary. He's, of course, meeting Georgina Long and Professor Scollier, who developed the immunity drugs around melanoma. So there's a huge interest in that for him. But, of course, it's all the other things: climate, connection. The community, of course, the Commonwealth is, of course, very, very important to him. And he's always said if Australia did want to become a republic, then he would support that. He said, it's not like we have the country to make money for us. That's not what it's all about. It's the people's choice, and that democracy is at the heart of that decision. So he supports it fully.
And walkabout, why have the royals decided to omit that term from their tour?
Well, this was a concept that was dreamed up by Queen Elizabeth when she first started coming to Australia. She wanted to meet the people, and of course that interaction had never happened before. So they use this phrase. They're no longer using it because it's considered insulting to Indigenous people in Australia. Of course, that is that word. So that is their word. So they're now just calling it a meeting with the community, meeting with people, instead of using that term, which is, highly respectful. Great idea. And that's the thing about Charles. He's always very interested to move the dial forward on issues that he's a very progressive man in lots of ways.